It was around 1979, and during that year, already from 1978, is when there was a lot of confusion going on in Iran, and a lot of demonstrations and a lot of upheaval. And people were worried as to what is going to happen for many reasons, some of which I mentioned. It was hard for them to just pick themselves up and leave, and leave their life behind and go to a new culture. But what a lot of people wanted was to make sure at least their children have somewhere that they're going to be able to study, to grow up without worries. A year before, the Rebbe had told Rabbi J.J. Hecht to start the process of being able to issue foreign visas.
Welcome to Ordinary People with Extraordinary Stories. I'm Chana Weisberg, host of this podcast. Joining me today, we have Rabbi Danny Yiftach, all the way from Marina del Rey, California, but originally from Iran. And he has an incredible story to tell us, to share with us. Thank you so much for joining us, Rabbi Yiftach.
Pleasure. Pleasure is all mine. Thank you.
Thank you. So originally you were born in Iran.
Correct. Yes.
And you escaped from Iran when you were how old?
Well, I'm not sure if you could call it an escape, but it was at the
Okay.
age of 13 and a half. And I say that because compared to many others who had a real story of escape,
Mm,
and with all ups and downs that are involved in escape, including people such as my mom and my siblings that later on ended up leaving. So
mm.
mine was relatively easy.
Okay, wow. So tell us first of all what was life like in Iran before you left for your first 13 years of life?
Well,
And
childhood,
give us a little history because I know this
sure.
was like during the time of the Shah, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So this was during the time of the Shah, and of course, as a child growing up in that time, I was not quite aware of everything that is going around. So to me, life was a bliss, wonderful home, wonderful family, wonderful day-to-day life, and as a child up until 13, that I was there 13 and a half, I had my friends, my schools that I loved,
Mm,
and life in Iran was, of course, in those days in particular, very a culture that was closed somewhat to the rest of the world. The truth is, even
mm,
today, perhaps it remains that way.
mhm,
But you could say we were in our own world back there.
mhm, mhm. And what was it like religiously, like Jewishly for Jewish people then?
So people in Iran are Sephardic Jews in general, although they're not descendant of Spanish Jewry, but they have adopted that the entire custom and minhagim of
Mhm,
Sephardim. So as you can imagine, they are believers. They very much care about Judaism, and they are active. Even those that may not call themselves necessarily religious or observant,
mhm,
still they are very traditional,
mhm,
and they will still have a shul life to go once in a while to shul, have a Friday night. Surely all the Yom Tovim, all the holidays were big. So and again, those that would call themselves not so religious still would keep kosher.
mhm.
So it's a very, very traditional community as it was back then.
And how has that changed since then? Has it been the same? Is it still the same or is there change since the regime changed?
Well, so to a great extent, I would say that I can't tell you that I have firsthand experience because
Mhm,
I haven't been there since. It's been
mhm,
many years, but I am in touch with the community back there. And the truth is that the community has grown by leaps and bounds in Yiddishkeit. They
mhm,
now actually have establishments such as kosher restaurants, such as yeshiva, kollel, many mikvahs that have been established. So in a way, you could say that Yiddishkeit has grown since then.
wow, that's so surprising because I would think that the regime has been, not allowing that.
No, to the contrary. Remember that it is the country as a whole is a country that believes in God.
Hmm.
and they support anything and any ideology that believes in God. They support.
Even other religions, they're okay with that.
Correct, correct. As long as there's God being the center that is being worshipped and believe in God, so they support that. And so, to that extent, no, there has been no resistance for the Jewish
Mm,
people to pursue what they like, and
mm,
they have been able to establish more and more Jewish educational institutions. Now there has been a somewhat of a difference in my days, although there was no advanced Judaic studies like in yeshiva or seminary, but there
mhm,
were a lot of day schools, a lot of Jewish day schools.
mhm,
And so perhaps one of the things that has changed since then is that there's not that many day schools as they used to be. But instead, now there's also advanced studies. If someone wants to pursue, learning Talmud, or in this case, more recently, also learning Hasidic philosophy, it's all available, and they're taking advantage of that.
how is it available? Like, who is teaching them? Is it people like yourself who are living abroad that are teaching them?
So it's a hybrid. There is, first of all, again, there is established kollels and yeshiva there in
Mm,
various cities, and so some of the subject matters are being taught locally by
mhm,
the rabbanim there and those that could teach, and some other subjects are being taught online from
mm.
here, from the United
Interesting.
States and other places.
Wow. I'm so surprised to hear all this. I didn't like realize. I think a lot of us don't realize that there's a community there that's studying and learning, and you're saying even growing in their Yiddishkeit.
Absolutely,
Wow,
absolutely.
it's very interesting. Do the people there want to leave?
For the most part, no. They don't. They are comfortable with their settings, and of course, there is financial difficulties these days, as we know and we understand. But overall, again, it's a unique culture, and so for the Jewish people that have grown accustomed to that for two and
Mhm,
a half thousand years,
mhm.
to explore the idea of a different culture is difficult for them. Different culture, different language, so they
So you said
most of them prefer to be there.
interesting. So you're saying that most of the community has been there. Their roots go back for 2,500 years.
Yeah, so they are there from the time after the first temple in Jerusalem, after the destruction
Mhm,
of the first temple, when a huge portion of the Jewish people were taken to exile to Babylonia.
mhm,
And once the Persian Empire went to war with Babylonia, they actually redeemed the Jewish people that were taken
mhm,
captive and
mhm,
had them come and join the Persian Empire.
mhm,
Eventually, one of the Persian kings gave permission for the full on construction of the Second Temple and encouraged a lot of the Jewish people to go there and rebuild, gave them permission. But there was a huge portion of them that stayed behind. They never went back
mhm,
to the Holy Land. So,
mhm,
therefore, that became the seed, the nucleus of the Persian Jewish community.
mhm. Are they very close knit?
Very much so.
Mhm,
Very, very much so. Everyone knows everyone. So,
mhm, mhm,
it's the culture of that part of the world to be very,
mhm, mhm,
close together, and communal events and neighborly and so on and so forth. And then, of course, the Jewish community, being that they have to be a community for the reasons of practicing their religion. So automatically, everybody gets to know everybody.
mhm. So as far as religious persecution, you're saying there isn't really.
There is none.
There is none.
No,
Okay. But
not for the Jewish people. Yeah.
as far as a connection to Israel, I guess that is something where
So no, so the Jewish community there is very loyal to the government and to the
Mhm,
establishment, and they do not their ideas and their values don't align with anything outside of that, and they have been
mhm,
very vocal about it.
mhm. Right. Okay. Okay, so tell us how you left Iran. I know you were a young
Okay.
boy then. You were 13 years old. Tell us what happened then.
Yes, yes. To the extent that I remember, right, all those parts
Right.
that I can remember.
Okay.
Well, so It was around 1979. And during that year, already from 1978, is when there was a lot of confusion going on in Iran, and a lot of demonstrations and a lot of upheaval. And people were worried as to what is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, 46 years ago, we're talking about, is not that much time after the Holocaust, and everything going
Right.
topsy turvy. So everyone was
Sure.
petrified, and they wanted to find a solution. What are they going to do? For many reasons, some of which I mentioned, it was hard for them to just pick themselves up and leave, and leave their life behind and go to a new culture. But what a lot of people wanted was to make sure at least their children have somewhere that they're going to be able to study, to grow up without worries
Mm-hmm.
of what might happen. So to that end is when there was um, an organized effort to be able to arrange for children that want to come out to be able to come out.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, in those days, I didn't know much as far as the background. All I heard was that there is some people, some rabbis that have come to the various shuls on Shabbos, and they're saying that they're ready to take out children if they want to go and study abroad. That they would be able to help
Where
them.
were these rabbis coming from?
So eventually, it came out that that was, obviously all
Mm.
orchestrated from Chabad World Headquarters in New York. It was a project that had many people involved. At a certain point, Rabbi J.J. Hecht had taken on the leadership of that program.
Mm-hmm.
And what I came to learn later on from Rabbi Yossi Afzin, who ended up as a Bocher being also involved in taking care of the children that came from Iran. So later on, he told me that a year before, the Rebbe had told Rabbi J.J. Hecht to start the process of being able to issue foreign visas, student visas,
This was
which,
after the revolution already, or
no,
this
no, no,
was
a
this was
year before.
so just
That,
because he knew that there was unrest there, or the Rebbe
well,
understood what
what
was happening?
what the Rebbe knew or not was not
Right.
discussed with me, but
Right.
that's the fact. So, of course, in hindsight, we see that absolutely paved the way, and everything was
Mm.
ready when the time came.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as the word got around in various communities that, yeah, the children have an option to be able to go out, and many signed up. I as well signed up. It wasn't so easy. My parents were not ready to let me go.
Right.
I
I'm
was still their
sure.
baby. That
Sure.
Yeah, and
Are
even
you
though
are you the are you the youngest in your family?
no, no, baby
No.
only because you will always be
Right.
your
Of
parents'
course.
baby. No,
Of
at that point
course.
I had a younger sister. Then she was 6 years old, and so she was officially the baby of the house.
Mm-hmm.
But I was the oldest boy in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, later on, I had two more brothers, which I never ended up seeing until they came out of Iran. So they were born after I left.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they were adamant not to let me go,
Mm-hmm.
but I was all fired up about it, and eventually I was able to get my grandparents to sit down and convince my parents to let me go.
Why were you so convinced that you wanted to leave? What was it that fired you up about the idea?
Um, there was this feeling, understanding, and I can't quite explain it at this point, that there is more to be learned and gained, a brighter future if I was able to
Mm-hmm.
go out and study.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it turned out to be 5,000% true.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess there was also perhaps hearing that others are going. Not so many of not in my school, not in my class, none of my classmates. I don't think signed up to come out, but in general, I was hearing
Mm-hmm.
about the fact that children are leaving. So I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
be part of that. Wasn't
What?
easy to get a passport and to get exit visas because at that point the revolution had already started. It was at its height, and everything was difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But with actually my father's perseverance, we were able to follow through with whatever government agencies that was needed to be able to make it happen, to get the visas.
So your parents came around. They thought. They were convinced that it would be okay for you to leave.
Yes, yes, yes.
Right.
So my grandparents were able to convince them. That obviously didn't stop them from crying day and night.
Of course.
The nights or the days before, right before I took off, and then in the airport, it was very emotional. But yes, they let me go.
It seems very brave for a 13-year-old to just wanna leave and explore a new place. What motivated you?
You know, as as you move forward in life and you become a parent yourself, and I have thought about my own children uh,
Mm,
around that age,
mhm.
and sometimes I question myself. I'm like, why were you so crazy about leaving?
Right.
Besides, now I wonder how my parents let me go. I can never do that. I cannot let my children go. But when you're faced with uncertainty and you feel that, okay, at least I could make sure that there is a brighter future for
Mm,
my child or for my children,
mhm.
that's what pushes you
Right.
to make that
Wow,
decision.
it's a choice then no parent wants to
Right,
be in the position to make, right.
right, right.
Wow, that must have been so hard. So your parents decided to let you go, and they worked towards getting you the papers to go. So how did that work out? What
So
happened?
it took some time, lots of difficulty coming going again because of the revolution that was ongoing. A lot of agencies were open, were closed, half day, not working full time, not full
Mm,
staff. But eventually, we were able to secure the visas needed. And once that was done, we were able to secure a ticket, an airline ticket that would take us out. I say us, I mean me and many other children.
mhm.
I think on my flight there were about 100 children on my flight.
Wow, did you know them? Were you all close?
No, no, I we
No.
well we became very close.
Right.
Once we were on that flight, and once we my particular flight went to Italy to be able to get the
Mhm,
visas for United States. So obviously, that's when we started making friends and acquaintances. One of the boys who was even younger than me, he was not even bar mitzvah yet. I remember, um, is David Lolian, or now Rabbi David Lolian, who
mhm.
has a community right here in the Valley area of Los Angeles. So yeah, so we met 46 years ago, the first morning in the hotel when he was a shy
Wow,
boy, and I had to invite him over to sit at the table for breakfast.
really? Wow. So how old were most of the children that were leaving?
So I would say um, on the upper end, it was probably 17-year-olds, I would say.
Mhm,
Not that many. Most were around 13, 14, 15, that area. Um, but interestingly enough, the youngest were the two. When I came to Italy, they split us up into various hotel rooms, and I ended up being a roommate with two brothers,
mhm.
and one of them was 11, and the other one was 9.
Hmm,
And I
wow.
think those were the youngest. So,
Youngest, wow.
which was odd because here I was a 13 and a half year old, and
Right.
suddenly I found myself being in the role of being an older brother and parenting them. I mean,
Mhm.
9 years old. That's
So
not.
young. Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
I
Can't even
felt so
imagine.
bad for them.
Right.
So I made a point of being on top of their needs and make sure that they're okay. But yeah, I wasn't so worried about myself, but for them, I was like really
Wow.
concerned. Yeah.
Really? Wow. So, did you know where you were going to? Like you said, you took a plane to Italy. Did you know where that you would end up in the United States?
Well, I knew it's going to be United States, but exactly where and what we're going to be doing there and which city, what setup, I was totally clueless. All
Mhm.
I knew is I'm leaving to go study in United States. That's all. That's all
Wow.
that I knew.
So you took this plane to Italy. You stayed there in Italy. How long were you in Italy for?
3 days. We were there for 3 days.
And that was to
And
get the visa for the
correct.
United States?
Yeah, to be
Mhm.
able to get the student visas and to be able to come over. So I spent Purim of 1979. So that would be Tafshin Lamates. Purim Tafshin Lamates. I was in Italy, in Rome, And
Mhm.
then right after that, we took off and came to United States. So the
And
first Yom Tov that I had in the United States was Pesach of that year.
wow. Were there adults that were with you that were taking care of this group that were accompanying
Um,
you?
Not on the flight.
Not on the
Once we
flight.
landed, they were standing, ready at the airport to receive us and to take care of us. But the flight itself, I mean, again, maybe some of the kids were a little bit older, maybe
Right.
16, but no adults.
What was that? Because Iran did not let adults out with you?
Yeah, so
It was
at
only the
that point,
children?
so again, it was a half and half. It was at that point, it was quite restricted as to who could leave the country.
Mhm.
And at the same time, you're talking about families suddenly abandoning their homes, their
Mhm.
businesses, their lives, their culture, and where they're
Mhm.
going to go. Somewhere where there's strange culture to them, a language they don't necessarily speak. What are they
Mhm.
going to do for money? So there was a lot of unknowns
Sure.
that scared them.
Mhm.
So they stayed behind.
They stayed. Okay, so then you landed in New York. What happened then?
Landed in New York. Well, a lot happened at that point. But perhaps the cutest thing that happened the night that we landed, we were taken from the airport to the to a shul, which later I found out it was Rabbi JJ Hecht's shul, and that's
Mhm.
where they had dinner ready for all the kids. Okay, after dinner, they said, "We're going to give each one of you a card, and that's the family that you're going to be staying by."
Mm.
And we were supposed to take the card and go to one of the volunteer yeshiva boys, older boys that are going to be driving, and they're going to drop you off at that location. So apparently, what they had done was that they had requested families in the community in Crown Heights to open up their homes to all these
Mhm.
children that are coming up because there was no way for them to absorb that many children as fast as they were coming, flight after flight. So, besides one or two dormitories, many families opened up their homes. So, I remember
Wow.
taking the card and going over to one of the Bachrim.
How many children in total like came out?
It was probably to the tune of 1,500 to 2,000 children.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, and it was flight after flight. So, in a matter
Mm.
of a short time, suddenly you have all
Suddenly
these
so many.
kids. Yeah.
Right. Wow. Incredible.
So I remember I took my card and I went over to one of the Bakrams. I handed to him to say that, okay, here's where I need to go. He took it. He said, okay, very good. Go bring your suitcases. So I turned around, I go grab my suitcases, and I come back and I don't see him. So I turn to somebody else and I say, I gave my card to someone, but what should I do? I don't. So he tells me, okay, what did it look like? Now imagine, 13 and a half years old, the first time I'm coming, see Lubavitchers, right? Lubavitcher Bachrim. I'm like, I don't know. He has a beard, he has a hat, he has glasses, and he looks at me and says, well, that's everybody here. Well, okay. So they ended up giving me another address, a new card. And so that's, yeah.
Wow.
And so for the first
W
6 months,
was it a big culture shock? Like, what was it like to come to a new land, a new place?
it was exciting. I think the excitement kind of made up for the anxiety, and there
Mhm.
was plenty of it
Mhm.
because, like you say, a new culture, a new way of doing things, a new language. Yes, I learned
You
English.
didn't speak English. What were you
I learned English in Iran, but it was very basic. I mean, like in the
right.
beginning, I literally had to. I remember the first week that I was there, I was walking around with a dictionary. Well, there was
Right.
no
Sure.
digital those days. It was a book,
Right.
and everything I
Right.
want, I
Sure.
have to flip and look for
Wow.
the right word. Eventually, as part of the mechina, the preparation class that they made for all these children, part of it was English as a second language,
Mm.
and so that made
Mhm.
up for the shortcoming.
Mhm.
Uh, and that process was the first few months, where they made temporary classrooms for us.
When
One
you
of
say "they," like, who is "they"?
So from one side, I would say Rabbi JJ Hecht
Mhm.
and everyone that worked with him and under him. The truth is,
Okay.
there were many people that were involved, But as a child, I didn't have the capacity to know who is who and who's in charge of
Right.
what. All I knew is that when we have a need, there's all these people that show up and take care of it.
Right. Right.
So no, there were
So
many.
it was all just the Rebbe said you have to take the kids out of Iran, and that was it. And then there was
That
this
was
whole
it.
army of people
Yeah, yeah,
to take it over.
and
Wow.
while obviously certain people were inspired to take on the responsibility, but obviously that it paved the way to begin with
Hmm.
for this to
Hmm.
be able to happen at the right time.
Right. Of course.
For example, I didn't even know the people that had come to Iran to go from shul to shul.
Hmm.
Later on in the, I learned that there were Rabbi Hechson was one of them. Rabbi Herzl Ilulian was another one. But as a child, it's very hard to just absorb
Sure.
everything that is happening so
Of
fast, so
course.
quickly.
So these were just yeshiva boys who went to Iran despite the danger, and just to convince them to
So,
convince
so at
parents to
that
let
at
their
that
children
period
leave.
of time, there was no.
There was no danger.
I wouldn't say right. Not that there was a danger. There was uncertainty,
Right.
but no danger.
Hmm. Right. So you stayed in someone's house in Crown Heights? I mean, you got
Yeah.
that card,
So
so
yeah. So I started first. Started out at a family. Alenik was the last name. Alenik, and then soon came summertime. A few months later, and summertime they organized, first of all, a camp for all the Persian kids, but they also at the same time chose some of the kids to go and experience camp at Gan Yisrael, Montreal.
Mhm.
So I was one of those kids that got chosen to go to Montreal. So obviously, very excited. I had a blast, amazing, amazing experience that you could only dream about, an overnight camp and all the
Mhm.
activities, and of course, um, and I guess they they underestimated how much Hebrew I knew, because all my life I went to Jewish school. So my quota for Mishnah's Baal Peh was very, very low. So I
So it
was
was easy
able
for
to. So my bunkmates were so happy because I was able to score high with learning Mishnah's Baal Peh, and yeah. So
you were a popular kid there, it sounds like.
oh, I made the bunk one because of me.
Right, of
Yeah.
course.
So
Sure.
yeah.
Wow.
So
Uh-huh.
so that
Did
was the official summer session.
Mhm.
Then after the summer session, when that finished, then okay, so we have to come back down to the city.
Mhm.
But it was still not everything had fallen into place as far as organizing schooling for the kids and so on and so forth. So they actually extended. There was a camp that they set up called Machane Mordechai in the Catskills. It was a
Mhm.
camp specifically made for the children, and they decided they're going to keep everyone there even beyond the summer. So
Mhm.
throughout Tishrei, the children were still there.
Mhm.
And so after finishing Montreal, I also joined the other kids in
Mhm.
Machane Mordechai there.
Mhm.
After Tishrei is when they were able to divvy up the children to various schools around town. And also some were chosen to be sent away to the yeshiva in Los Angeles.
Mhm.
So I was one of those 10 students that was sent to Oral Hana Chabad here in Los Angeles. And that's how I
Uh-huh.
became an Angelino. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So at that
Right.
point, Rabbi Kunin, the head shliach, was running all the chinuch moistus, the organizations of education in town. So he accepted some of us. I went through high school,
Mhm.
and eventually, after finishing high school, I went to the base measures there, and that's when I came to know closely Rabbi Shochat.
My
Uh,
uncle, right?
Absolutely amazing,
Yeah.
amazing person. And yeah, so the first, so finished high school there, and the first few years of base medrash I spent in Los Angeles before moving
Wow.
on to the East Coast to go to the various yeshivas.
Wow. So what was it like with your family back home, and you're in yeshiva, you're in Los Angeles, you're learning. Did you miss home? Were you able to communicate? What was that like?
Uh, Missing home very much,
I'm
and
sure. You
yeah,
were
it,
still
it
only
wasn't easy.
13. Yeah.
Correct. And imagine like any 13, 14-year old that has uh, whatever challenges, if you're having a rough day, because you think, somebody said something to you that
Right.
wasn't pleasant, even if it wasn't the case, doesn't matter if your feelings got
Right.
hurt or whatever. And so normally, 13, 14-year old will pick up the phone or go home and tell the
Mm.
parents,
Hmm.
have a shoulder to cry on.
Of course.
So that was difficult, not to be able to reach out to parents. In those days, there was no cell phones,
Hmm.
and so you have a public phone on this end that I could try to use, or even an office phone. But the problem was that back then, not every household in Iran had a telephone.
Hmm.
So if I wanted to speak to my parents, I would need to call my grandparents, set up a
Hmm.
time and a date, and say, at this time, I'm going to call you. Please go get. So they would go get my parents, drive them over to their home, and wait for
Wow.
my phone call.
Right. Wow.
So it wasn't easy.
No, I'm
But
sure.
at the same time, the Hanhola, the administration of yeshiva, played a big role in being like parents to me, um, including the times when my feelings were hurt, so
Right.
I would, so the principal would come, would sit down with me. Rabbi Yafi was the principal then in high school, and very, very sweet soul, very kind, and he understood the situation. But Baruch Hashem, during those years, I ended up learning under and having a relationship with many great, great people, including Rabbi Yasser Schusterman, who's the Rav
Mm.
here in Los Angeles, and to many of the Anash, was my teacher for one of the years in yeshiva. I had Rabbi Shimon Reichik, Olav Shalom,
Mhm. Mhm.
also
Mhm.
as a teacher. Rabbi Mendel Lapkovsky was my
Mhm.
teacher for one year, which that year actually forced me to have to learn Yiddish properly because he only spoke in Yiddish and he only
Oh,
taught
wow.
in Yiddish. So even though
Wow.
I had learned Sikhs before and so on and so forth, but then I had to polish off the Yiddish at that time.
Right.
And then, of course, eventually going to the base medrash and having the merit of learning under Rabbi Shochat.
Right.
That's
Wow.
another
And
highlight.
wow. And what was going on at home at this time? Like, what was the change in back in Iran?
Well, for one thing, I ended up throughout the years having two new brothers, two new siblings, which I hadn't
Mm.
seen.
Mhm.
So life was moving forward in Iran, but at the same time, um,
And was there more uncertainty there? What was life like there under the revolution?
um, you know, I think more than anything else, it was the worry of being away from each other.
Mhm.
I think
Mhm.
that was the biggest challenge for my parents as well for me.
Mhm.
And yeah, so it's so in a way you could say nothing really changed. Of course, life
Mhm.
moved forward, but it was kind of a holding pattern.
Mhm.
Everything, the environment, the situation, everything was just the same. Just time
Mhm.
was passing by.
Did your parents wanna leave?
They did because they missed me and they
Mhm.
wanted. At least that's the excuse they give me. I don't know.
Mhm.
Maybe they're pretending. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, Baruch Hashem, and eventually they came. My mom and siblings came about 6 years later,
Mhm.
6.5 years later, and my father came 2 years after that. So they were
How did
here
they
for my
get out?
wedding.
Oh, wow, that's
Yeah.
nice. How were they able to leave?
So each one had. They came separately. My
Mhm.
mom and my siblings came one way, and my father another way.
Uh-huh, okay. And were they able to take anything out with them, or did they have to leave everything behind? Everything
No,
behind.
no, they
Wow,
couldn't. And anyhow, at that point, the currency didn't translate to much,
right.
to be able to take out. And but yeah, so once they came, I literally, for example, when my father came, I literally had to go meet him in Europe and bring some money there so that they're spending
Really?
money. Yeah.
So that was a real escape.
Well, they put it this way: it was an opportunity for them to come and for the family to be together
Mhm.
because I was here years before. My
Hmm.
mom and siblings came a little bit later. At that point, for my father, he's a very easygoing person. He's like, I don't need the money. It's fine. I just want to be with family.
Right. For sure. Wow. Wow. I remember reading a story about you get by the Rebbe. You were you were trying to get a blessing for your uncle. Can you share that?
Of course, yeah. We going back to, I think it was probably around 1994. No, it goes back to 1993, I believe. Yeah. So my great uncle, that would be my mom's uncle, had some health problems, which basically rendered his heart. They couldn't do much for the heart anymore, and they said that he needs to get a heart transplant. And unfortunately, being on an official list, and you have to find the right donor, the right match, and there's a priority system. There's a whole science behind it, apparently, of who gets which heart if it becomes available. And they were waiting for a long time, and no luck. So when I was going to New York, and the relatives found out that I'm going, his wife, so my great aunt,
This
and
is when you were already in New York, like when you were already there
no,
for
no, no, no. So
no.
I was correct. I was already there for beyond base medrash. So I was
Oh,
learning
okay.
in
Right.
the higher level education in various yeshivas on the East Coast.
Mhm. Mhm.
So they asked me to ask for a blessing from the Rebbe for him, so that
Mhm.
he should be able to find a match. So in those days, you remember the dollars, the
Mhm.
magical dollars that
Mhm.
everyone talks about. And so one day when the Rebbe was giving dollars, I decided, okay, now is the opportunity to ask the Rebbe for a blessing. And I was standing in line and preparing myself, preparing. I'm trying not to be petrified. That's what
Yeah.
preparing is. Of course, there's the Hasidic dimension of preparing, looking into your own soul and everything else. I was petrified, you know.
Right.
But nonetheless, I decided that okay, I got to be ready. I knew I'm not going to have much time. So I decided I'm going to just say one sentence, Refuah Shalema, and then to
Mhm.
give my uncle's name.
Mhm.
That's it. Because as we know, you don't have much more time than that. You take a split
Mhm.
second later, you're getting yanked by somebody in that line. So, okay, I'm practicing the whole time in line and it's taking time. That's fine. But I have it now down like a science. It's one sentence, a couple of words, no big deal.
Right.
So I come in front of the Rebbe, and it's my turn. And as with everybody else, the Rebbe is extending his hand to give $1, and to everyone says bracha v'atzlacha. Next person, bracha v'atzlacha. And when it came my turn, and I'm about to open my mouth to say it, wouldn't you know it, the mouth doesn't move. I'm frozen, and I can't say a word.
Is
So
it
the
'cause you
Rebbe,
were just so in awe of the Rebbe? Like,
of
what was
course,
it?
of course, I'm in front of the Rebbe. What,
Right.
how can I even have the chutzpah to say anything? I don't
Right.
know. Just everything froze.
Right.
So the Rebbe is reaching to give the dollar, and suddenly he kind of midair, he paused, he looked up, and he said, "Refuah Shalema."
Mhm.
So not as though, obviously, even though I couldn't say anything, he read the mind, knew completely what's going on here and what I'm asking for. So, and yes, after that I got yanked. Let's go, because I was frozen, I couldn't move, in a shock. That the Rebbe answered. So I'm now suddenly I find myself right outside 770 in front. I don't even know how I got there, and I'm in my own world trying to figure out what happened. What transpired just now. And then after a while, when I got back to myself, I was like, oh wow, okay, this is amazing. I should really let the relatives back in LA know the bracha
Mhm.
that I got. So it took me some time to go and then find again a public phone in those days, right?
Mhm.
um, and and I tried calling my relatives, and they weren't picking up. This is
Mhm.
a few hours later. And then I tried and tried, and then I saw nobody picks up. So I tried calling my mom. by then already my parents had come and they were living in the United States, and they were not picking up either.
Hmm.
So then I tried calling my grandparents, who had by now also immigrated to the United States. They're not picking up. Okay, so no answer. The next day, I told myself, I got to try. It's good news and I got to share with them. I still can't get a hold of my great uncle, but I tried my mom and she picked up. And I said, where have you been? I have this amazing news. I want to tell you what happened here. So she goes, yeah, what? So I go through the whole, drill of what happened. I came and went. I got a bracha. And so I said, but where were you? I tried everyone. No one was answering. So she said, well, let me tell you. It seems like it was around the same time that you were by the Rebbe and you got $1, that suddenly my uncle, that would be my great uncle or her uncle, got a phone call from Northern California that they have found the proper heart and he has 45 minutes to get himself to the hospital. They're flying
Wow.
the heart down there for him to have the heart transplant.
Hmm.
And so, as soon as, and again, Persian Jewish families are very close. So when that news got out, the entire family of all the nephews, uncles, aunts, everyone went to the hospital to be there as a support. That's why you couldn't
Wow.
get a hold of anyone.
Wow.
And so this was already post surgery, and he was doing well, thank God.
Wow.
And I remember I decided to fly back to LA to go pay a visit. And when I went there, my cousin came as well, Rabbi Yossi Cohen, who also leads a community in the Valley area, and another friend of mine, Rabbi Asher Habibian. And we showed up to the hospital. And when he actually opened up his eyes, and um, he told everyone present, I see three angels. To him, that was the three
Mhm.
rabbis there were like three angels bringing the good news to him. So yeah, so that's one
Wow.
of the miraculous stories of the Rebbe.
Beautiful. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, when you describe it, I'm feeling the warmth of your community, the warmth of your family, and the Persian warmth that you're talking about. It makes me wonder, like, what was that reunion like when when your mother and your sibling and her siblings finally came to join you in America, and then later your father, of course. But what was that like? You hadn't seen them for how many years?
So my mom and siblings, well, my mom and sister, I didn't see for about 6.5 years. My two
Mm,
younger brothers, I had never seen because they were born after
wow.
I left.
Right.
When I saw them, my first brother was like two years old,
Wow.
and my youngest brother was a few months old
Mm.
when I saw them. And as I said, my father came 2 years later. So I
A
actually
and you had left them at 13, and this was like you're now 19, over 19
correct,
years old, like
correct,
a completely different person, a grown up, from this young teenager. So what
yeah,
was that
yeah.
like?
So I didn't meet them here in the United States. Um, And long story short, that once I got the news that they came out and my mom and siblings went to first one country, and then they ended up in Austria to get their visas to come forward to come here. So once I got the news, I decided, okay, let me go.
Mm,
Enough waiting. Let me go
mm,
and meet them. And everything happened so quickly that I was making plans, and at the same time, I didn't know how to tell them that I'm coming because I wasn't sure where they are. I knew they are in Austria. I had an address, but they didn't have a telephone number there. So it's a matter of getting a message to them. But I wanted to just get on an airplane and go there.
mm,
So I thought to myself, okay, let me just pack the stuff and I'll call them from JFK before I take off. Of course, New York traffic, and I got to JFK like barely a few minutes to get on the flight, so I couldn't call them. Okay, I figured to myself, when I land, I will call them from the airport. On the flight, there was another yeshiva boy that was flying back home. He lived in Austria, and we became friends. And so once we landed, and I got my suitcases, his parents were there. They came and they said, "We want to give you a ride." I said, "Look, I gotta take care of something first. I gotta make some phone call." They go, "No, no, no, no. This is our mitzvah, and we have to." Okay, back and forth. Okay, let's not deprive them of their mitzvah, right? Besides, I have no idea where I'm going, so I might as well get it right. So, but what I'm going to do with my mom? Okay, I figured, we'll go there. They'll drop me off. I'll make a phone call somewhere on the street, tell them I'm here. So they arrive at the address, and I take out my suitcases. Thank you very much. Really appreciate everything. They go, no, 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 no. Well, the mitzvah got to be complete. We got to take your suitcases upstairs. Old Austrian buildings, no elevator. So, and this is like a couple of flights up. And I'm like back and forth. No, listen, I got to make a phone call. No, listen, we'll just bring the suitcase at least to the floor so that you don't have to schlep it. Then you could do whatever you want. Okay. So we go up the stairs. I arrive at the floor. I think it was the fourth floor. I forget. And they come to the top of the staircase. True to their word, they left the suitcase right there by the landing in the hallway, and they left. Very good.
Hmm.
So now I'm on the floor in the hallway, and I turn around, and I see standing in the hallway is my mother.
Wow.
And, caught by surprise, obviously. This wasn't the plan.
Hmm.
And I tell her in Persian, I tell her hello. In Persian, you say salam. So she responded to me in English. She said, hello. So I was like, what's the matter? You don't recognize me? Now, mind you, I was 13 years old, this little kid,
Hmm.
that left. And now,
Hmm.
almost
Of
6
course.
feet tall and with a beard and black hat and a white shirt. And so later I found out that she thought I'm one of the rabbis, the social workers that come around to help the immigrants, with
Hmm.
what they need. Apparently that was a thing that they did, various organizations. So she thought I'm one of those. So she responded to me. She said, I'm sorry. Do I know you from somewhere?
Yeah.
And I was like, Ma, it's me, Danny. Biggest mistake in the world. She went into a shock. She was literally she
Wow.
couldn't move, she couldn't talk, she was just shaking, terribly. I felt so bad, and not much for me to do other than to move forward and just give her a hug and say,
Right.
yeah, it's
Right.
me. I'm here to visit. And and I remember at that point my younger brother was 2 years old. uh, um, Came out of the apartment to the hallway. I guess my younger sister had realized what had happened, and she opened
Hmm.
the door, and my brother was yanking on my mom's dress, saying, "Is this the Danny you were talking about? Is this the Danny you were talking about?" Very cute scene. So yeah, it took some time for that shock to wear off, for her to be able to even talk, and to eventually walk her back into the apartment.
Wow.
So it wasn't one of those fairy tale reunions. It
No,
was
but you could see the
shocking. It was
emotion. I
exciting. It
mean,
was
yeah, I mean, the emotion that was going on, I mean, for your mother, it must have been
oh,
just incredible.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
Wow.
And later on, I was like, why were you in the hallway anyhow? So that, because they have their laundry rooms and everything else
Yeah.
outside the units over there in the apartment, she had come out to take care of
Uh-huh.
something. And so yeah, I spent some time there, a week or two, and that was before heading from there to Italy, because I was going to go there for Pesach to help the immigrants that were en route and were
Mm.
meanwhile in Italy waiting for their
Mm.
visas. So
Wow.
they needed a community seder for the Persian speaking people there, and the shliach there, who was Rabbi Friedman and Rabbi Bisk, who's now in Canada, was the shliach then in La Dispoli, Italy. So I went there to make the public seders there.
Hmm. Wow. And your parents and your mother, she went to.
No, so she stayed in Austria. She couldn't leave, and they already had organized a Pesach Seder there
Mhm.
for everyone. And,
Mhm.
and yeah, and then I ended up again going back, and so it was an
Hmm.
interesting period of time.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. So you said at the beginning of this interview that you were, this young boy who was 13 years old who just felt like there's more to life. There's more that you could be learning, and that's why you decided to leave. Looking back now, what do you feel about that decision?
Oh, I would never look back at any of those years, any of the decisions. I mean, after all, I'm a true believer in the fact that you are who you are based on the past.
Mhm,
So, look, to to be a Chabad chassid, trying to be a Chabad chassid,
mhm,
and to be the Rebbe Shliach is obviously the biggest honor, and that would have never been possible if not for those decisions. And I have a great debt of gratitude to, of course, to the Rebbe for making it possible and having the foresight, but also to all of those that were involved, starting with Rabbi
mhm,
J.J. Hecht and all the Bachram that helped out, Rabbi Yossi Afzin, who was involved then, and down to Rabbi Kunin, who accepted the students here in Yeshiva, and Rabbi Shachad, of course, and everyone else that
mhm,
took me under their wings. So there was a lot of people that I need to be thankful for. With Rabbi Yossi Afzin, eventually our relationship grew more. I ended up as a yeshiva bacher being a ben bais, someone who goes like every Shabbos for Shabbat meals to his house. Him and Shira, his wife Shira Afton. So they became a role model as well for me.
mhm,
Growing up those
mhm,
critical years. And fast forward, eventually, as destiny would have it, our first son, me and my wife Sonia, our first son David, married their daughter. So we
oh,
became
wow.
mechutanim. Yeah.
Wow.
So we have that relationship
Unbelievable.
as well. Yeah. And of course, where we are today is always teamwork, not only people that were involved on that level, but surely I couldn't have made it um, to here without my wife.
Hmm.
Sonia, who's originally from Cleveland, Ohio, from the
Oh,
Beechwood
really?
neighborhood.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I was gonna ask. Okay, so she's not from the Persian community.
No, so this is a
Yeah.
what we call an intermarriage in
It's
the
rare.
Chabad community. Yes,
Uh-huh.
and no, so we Baruch Hashem, we had shared goals, and to that end, every step of the way, it was the joint effort to be able to be here on Shlichus, accomplish what we have.
What made you decide to go on shlichus?
Growing up in Chabad, uh, I think the question would be the other way around.
Mhm,
Growing up in Chabad, why wouldn't you want to go on shlichus?
mhm, mhm,
It's because the way you learn is that the ultimate is to be able to teach, to bring somebody else
mhm,
closer.
mhm,
And surely in my case, where I was on that side of the fence,
mhm,
the beneficiary of everybody else's giving, it was no question that that's what I want to do.
mhm.
And as a
Wow.
matter of fact, on our first date with my wife Sonia, people discussed a lot of things. That was the first topic: shlichus yes or shlichus no.
Wow.
And once we were on the same page on that one, the rest went down very easy.
Wow. Do you feel that you missed out on some of your childhood, or do you feel you got strengthened because of your unusual circumstances?
Um, no, I don't think so. I mean, look, yeah, may have been some challenges growing up away from parents, but I still acted out. I was still a teenager. I still, and yeah. So throughout the years, no, I honestly, I don't think. Not only I don't feel I missed out on anything. I think this was the most unbelievable thing that could have happened to me.
Wow. Wow. And when your parents eventually did settle, did you reconnect to them? Like, I mean, you missed out on so many years, but were you close with them?
Yeah, so reconnect and close. I was already at an age where I was in various dormitories and various yeshivas
Mhm.
on the East Coast, so I was never under the same roof anymore.
Right.
Like a typical
Right.
Your children are 14 years old. That's it. They get shipped out to dormitory in yeshiva,
Right.
and that's it. So the same thing, yeah. But of course, you know we are close, and uh, we being that they also live here in one of the neighborhoods in Los Angeles, we come and go a lot.
Mm,
Two Shabbosim ago, they were by me, and God willing, this
mm,
Shabbos they will be by me, and
hmm.
yeah,
Beautiful.
absolutely.
Beautiful. And you mentioned that you have a connection to to people that are in Iran right now that you learn with them. How did that come about? Like when did you start that and how did you facilitate that?
So there was during COVID time when
Mhm.
I should say the summer before COVID is when it started, where I was asked to go and teach a group of young people from Iran, so that they
Mm,
could have somebody that teaches them in their own language. And so I had to travel to go somewhere and teach them. After that, their interest had peaked. They wanted to learn more, and in particular, Hasidic teachings. And so I started a weekly lesson with them online,
mhm,
which of course, once COVID came, that was the only way to communicate for
mhm,
everybody. So that class started, and then eventually there were others who were interested in learning as well. So by now we have three classes a week ongoing
wow.
that I teach. There's three different tracks and in particular just general Chassidus, and in particular Tanya. The book of Tanya is what we learn together. So in the various tracks we have Igeres HaKodesh, which is the fourth section of the book of Tanya, is
Mm,
the original track that I started. That's where we're holding. The other one is holding in Igeres HaTeshuva, which is all about returning to Hashem, the third section of Tanya. And in the more recent track, we are holding in Shar HaYichud VeEmunah, which is all about belief in the unity of Hashem.
mm,
So those three are ongoing. I'm not the only one teaching. There is other Persian-speaking Chabad Chassidim that are also teaching, uh,
mhm.
and so we make sure that they get what they need as far as Jewish education.
Wow. How large of a class is this? How many people are learning?
So it depends on each track. As far as people that are present live on the platform, in other words, they could interact, they could ask me questions, and I could hear them, and so on and so forth. So there is one that has about 20 people.
Mm,
Another, the second one, which is the larger one, has about 70 people.
wow.
And then the third one also about 20-25 people. But that's on the platform. But besides that, it gets
Mm,
streamed live onto YouTube and onto
mhm,
Facebook, and also it gets picked up by two satellite stations, and it broadcasted
mhm.
to the Middle East on
Oh,
satellite,
wow.
so people catch
Wow.
it that way too. So when I'm teaching, of course, I could see all the people that are making comments on YouTube and so on and so forth, but I can't answer all their questions or respond
Right.
to, so they're not, it's not that interactive with them, but they're
Right.
watching it live.
Right.
And also on Facebook. So it gets broadcasted on multiple channels at the same time.
Right.
There's a whole YouTube channel called Farsi Torah, all one word,
Mhm,
Farsi Torah on YouTube, which is most of the classes have been recorded and uploaded. I think we have about 340 classes uploaded so far. We still have another probably 150 classes that we haven't had a chance to upload. But
mhm.
as it's ongoing, the classes get added online.
Do you think that the Jews in Iran want us to know anything about their situation or how they're doing right now?
I think what they appreciate most is the fact that we think about them, that
Mhm,
we care about them.
mhm,
So in our interactions, when just as simple as how everyone is doing, and usually before the class starts, I have a few minutes of chit chat with the participants, and they are able to contact me via WhatsApp, with any personal questions that they may have, and so on and so forth. and they really, really appreciate the fact that they know we think about them.
Mhm.
Many of them, for example, they know that Be'ezus Hashem, I'm going to be traveling to New York for Gimel Tammuz, so they're sending me the requests in
Mm.
Persian. But nonetheless, it's
Right.
it will all, of course,
Wow.
be given over to the Rebbe when I come there. Be'ezus Hashem.
Wow. Wow. Amazing. Amazing. Looking back at your life, that little boy who's now this big rabbi who teaches so many, any thoughts about how things have evolved?
I don't know about Big Rabbi, but the little boy is still there, and but that's okay because it's sometimes that perspective of a little boy that wants to explore more, learn more, knows that there is still more to be accomplished in oneself and for others. So I actually cherish that little boy,
Wow.
so it's still there.
Wow. Wow, amazing. Rabbi Yiftach, thank you so much for joining us. You gave us such
Absolutely.
an so fascinating what's going on in your story. Really, really
My
amazing. And
pleasure.
we wish you continued success as that little
Oh,
boy to keep on growing and to keep on influencing so many others in such a beautiful way.
thank you. And whoever gives a blessing, he or she themselves become blessed. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Wow, what an incredible interview with Rabbi Danny Yiftach. I found it so fascinating to hear about the people who are now the Jews that are continually to be now in Iran. The history of the whole situation was very interesting to hear how he left there, how he was a young boy, 13 years old, making that decision. And it just I could just feel the emotions in the air from his family, his parents, his grandparents, as well as him choosing that life, that better life, and how he looks back at that decision now and how that really has made him into who he is. He still feels like he's that little boy, but that choice that he made then has really shaped his life into becoming who he became, the individual who now helps so many Jews and who learns and studies with Persian Jews in Iran, studies and exposes them to the beauty of Judaism and the beauty of Hasidus. Um, the insight of the Rebbe in bringing these children out is just incredible. I can't even imagine the logistics of what was involved in thousands of boys and girls, thousands of children being brought over, and of course the courage of their parents in allowing them to happen. I felt that emotion again so strongly when he described his meeting up with his mother and how she really literally went into shock because she wasn't expecting to see him. And after so many years, 6.5 years, leaving as a 13-year-old, coming back as a 19.5-year-old, that must have been such an emotional meeting. But of course, the beauty of that meeting is just in how his mother had the courage to allow it to happen and what he became as a result of it. And I found that part really fascinating. And I guess the take home message for all of us is that, when different experiences in our life could really shape us and form us into things that we never, ever expected. And we just need to have the courage to move forward in those experiences, as Rabbi Yiftach did, and as he took those experiences to form him and forge him into the beautiful life that he has of being a shliach of the Rebbe in Marina Del Rey and teaching and igniting others with the inspiration that he was taught as a child. If you enjoy watching these interviews, I hope you are signed up to Chabad.org/extraordinary. You can watch us as well on YouTube. Please subscribe to our channel so you can make sure that you get these videos as soon as they drop. And give us a heart, give us a like, drop us a comment. Let us know what you thought of it. We love to hear from you. And we love the fact that you are watching. Thank you so much for being part of this extraordinary community.